Welcome to a special edition of Lunch with Jamie. 1 week before California's primary, I sat down with Democrats running from everything from governor to LA mayor to city council to Congress and gave each one of them a shot to convince Californians why they deserve your vote. I invited every top Democratic candidate in these races, so if you don't hear from one of them, that was their choice, not ours. Big thanks to my co-host Matt Littman for pulling this together with me on 72 hours notice. Now, here's the forum. Welcome to the Jamie's List First Candidates Forum. For those of you new to Jamie's List, welcome. For the regulars, nice to see you. I was inspired to put this together because I love LA and California. I've been living here for over 20 years, and it's the greatest place on earth. It clearly has its problems, but having grown up in New York City in the 70s and 80s, this place still feels like a utopia. It just needs help, and it needs it fast. The eyes of the world are going to be on this city and state over the next 2 years, and this is one of the most critical elections I've seen as an Angelino. With 1 week left, we still don't know enough about these candidates and what they're actually do. We're all caught up in memes and social media and TikTok, and we need some real answers and some specific answers. So I asked my buddy Matt Littman to help me gather as many Democratic candidates as possible to give us one last chance of why we should vote for them. Thank you, Matt, for helping me put this together in less than 24 hours. And thank you all for joining. We have a lot of ground to cover in a very short time. Every candidate gets the same opening question. We have a few rapid follow-ups, no prep on their end, no script on ours. We'll try to keep the candidates brief and honest. We're lucky enough to have Tom Steyer to kick us off. So Tom, thank you. Welcome to the Candidates Forum. Great. So Tom, in 60 seconds or less, please tell us why people should vote for Tom Steyer.
So first of all, people describe this as a complicated race for governor. It is not complicated. There are only three people who can get into the top two at this point. One is a hard right Republican, Steve Hilton, who's been endorsed by Donald Trump. So let's not talk about him at all. Number two is a corporate Democrat, Javier Becerra, who has taken money from Chevron and the second biggest oil driller in California, from Meta, from Uber. He has basically said, when pressed, what would you change? He said, we're doing pretty well. We're the fourth biggest economy in the world, and had nothing to say. I'm running because I think California is too expensive for Californians to live here anymore. And I'm going to try and take on housing, build 1 million houses people can afford. I'm going to go after the electric monopolies and try and drive down their cost by 25%. Californians pay twice as much as the rest of the country for electricity. I'm for single-payer healthcare because healthcare is and should be a right for Californians. And if we're going to afford it, we're going to have to move to single-payer. So to a large extent, I'm the change agent. I'm willing to take on the special interest. They're spending a record amount against me. And that validates that really I am the person they're threatened by who actually will change things for working people.
Tom, I was thinking about the fact that you've put your money where your mouth is. I had dinner the other night, Tom, with Doug Boxer, who was talking about the bank that you opened in Oakland that gives money to people and helps people with banking that might not normally have access to that. And so we know work you've done on climate. We know work you've done to get voters out as well around in the state and maybe the country, I think too, Tom. Here's the question, though, is you've never been in government, actually, right? So how do you go from that private sector, that philanthropy help, to running the fourth largest economy in the world?
So let me say this. There has been a lot of talk in California about what the government's going to do. And that talk has been done by professional politicians. But there has not been a lot of results for Californians, which is why California right now is unaffordable for the people who live here. We have a school system that is in the 30s out of 50 states, and we don't deliver healthcare as a right. I started a business in one room with no partners, no employees, and no windows, and I built it into a $38 billion business. You know what that's called? Getting results. As a private citizen, I've taken on 3 funded corporate interests at the ballot box, oil companies, tobacco companies, and multinationals, delivered billions of dollars every time for education and healthcare for the people of California without charging Californians a penny. All 3 of those were things the legislature could have done, but couldn't. I have registered 1.2 million Californians so we could have a representative democracy. My wife and I put together a coalition of over 200 organizations so that we could get free breakfast and free lunch for every school kid in California. That happened. I've gotten results. I could keep going, but I want to say this. I have gotten results consistently as a private citizen in the public sector for 15 years. I believe as governor, I'll keep doing the same thing, taking on the corporate interests, delivering for working people, and actually, I call it shared prosperity. This is the richest state in the country, and we have the highest poverty rate. We are not delivering, this government is not delivering for working people in the state of California. And if we're going to have change, it's not going to come from inside the system. Somebody's going to have to take on the system. And that's why the corporations who think they own this state have spent a record amount against me. And that's why working people are supporting me. Honestly, we're going to need change, and we're going to need change from someone who's always gotten results. And that is immodestly who I am.
Tom, you mentioned the business community. California continues to rank at the bottom 48th, 49th, 50th in place to do business. Why is that, and how are you going to change that starting on day one?
So I think there are two issues there, Jamie. One of them is cost. Because housing is so expensive, because healthcare is so expensive, because electricity is so expensive, because food is so expensive, you have to pay your employees a lot of money so that they can survive. And so the first thing is it's very expensive to employ people in this state. The second thing is this. We have had a lot of conflicting rules, of regulations, multiple agency, multiple points of contact, very expensive and confusing and not coordinated. And I think one of the things that's true about California, we've written a lot of laws. It's a question of how are we actually enforcing them, and how do the state, the different agencies in the state, the counties and the cities work together. And to a very large extent, that's a management task. One of the things we've said is we're going to have an Office of Intergovernmental Affairs so that actually we coordinate these things and hopefully stop have conflicting, overlapping, expensive regulations that are doing the same job multiple times with no coordination.
Tom, let's switch over. You've heard this question before. How does a billionaire relate to the average person, right? So we've seen it work. We've seen it work in New York with Mayor Bloomberg, right? And then we've seen it definitely not work on a federal level, right? With Donald Trump. So for you, we get this question a lot, and I know you've talked about it before, but how do you, given your status, relate to this affordability question that everybody's talking about?
Well, first of all, let me say this. I've never inherited a penny. I made money because I started a business and it went very well. And my wife and I have said that we will give our money away to the same progressive causes that I'm talking about working on as governor while we're alive. So the question is, how can I relate? Look, I've said as the candidate, I will go see more Californians and look them in the eye than anyone else. And I think if you check, that's true as a multiple. And it's absolutely critical that we get out. I view that as both a great joy, because for those of you who don't get a chance to do it, Californians are wonderful. This is the Rainbow Coalition, but people are incredibly hardworking, incredibly sincere and wonderful. And every time I go out and meet Californians, it's reassuring and a joy. But let me say this, the problems here about affordability are obvious. The solutions are fairly straightforward. The question is, who in this race for governor will get the results that working people need? And there's only one person who's even saying he will try. I will get the results. And you can look at my record and see I've always gotten results. Whether California is too expensive, that's not an issue. The key thing for me is to make sure that I go out. When you look at someone who's doing an incredibly hard job and being paid very poorly for it, in a very skilled and important job, you understand that something needs to change because you can put it with a person. When you go out and see a teacher who is reaching into her pocket for school supplies, can't afford to live in the district where she teaches, but is completely dedicated to the kids, that informs you about where we are in education in California. And that's why we've had a bus tour. That's why we've done a series of town halls. I take questions from everybody, just as I am here, regardless of the questions are. I always say, there are no hard questions. They're unprepared answers. And that is not true. Javier Becerra never takes questions. I am willing to go out and look, and I believe my not just my life experience, but also my connection with people and my goals mean that I am all over these problems all the time, and that's all I'm thinking about.
To follow up on that, Tom, I'm thinking about the lack of when you have a lot of money, you don't have to raise a lot of money. In your case, you've put in a lot of money, right? And sometimes being able to raise money means people are constantly giving you feedback. So are you able to get good feedback from people if you're not raising money? And then how does that affect your administration?
Well, Matt, that's a great question. And I want to flip it on its head. When I go out to a town hall, anybody can come. When I go out and meet people in the community, I'm meeting people broadly across the spectrum. When you're raising money, by definition, do you know what those people have? Money. So when they're giving you feedback, you're getting disproportionate. If you're raising money from really rich people or billionaires and corporations, they're giving you feedback. And the feedback you're getting is from their bubble. And so you start to think, oh, and you won't believe this, Matt, but I have had very rich people in this state say the problem with this state is the teachers. They're so overpaid, they're driving us into bankruptcy. And it's like, are you kidding? Like, do you even know what you're talking about? But they say it to each other back and forth, and they start to believe it. And to the same extent, the corporations, look, we have seen very convincingly in this state this year, and more broadly in the United States, that corporations are overwhelmingly focused on their bottom line. The head of the Western States Petroleum Association, which is the lobbying group for oil companies in California, said it is the duty of Chevron to extract every penny they can gouge out of Californians because of the Iran war. That is not the feedback that I want to hear. That is not the group of people. But when you're going out for money, they're investing in you. And particularly in corporations, they're investing in their bottom lines. And so I go out and talk to working people and get their feedback. When you're raising money, you by definition are raising money from rich people and big corporations. And those people have their point of view. It's a very limited one, and in my mind, a very distorting one.
Tom, we got just under 5 minutes left. So we have a lot of Angelinos on this, a lot of people in the film business. What are you going to be able to do on day one to actually stop this runaway production from California?
So let me start, Jamie, if you don't mind, at 30,000 feet. Look, I'm on Team California. California, Los Angeles invented Hollywood, invented the film business, invented the entertainment business. And a bunch of people are trying to steal it from us by basically paying productions to go there. And we can't allow that to happen. I'm on Team California because this is a California expertise that exists, that is incomparable, and we need to stand up for those people. So what does that mean? It means going with film credits much more so people are not allowed to buy our business. It means checking every regulation to make sure we're not causing productions to pay money unnecessarily to meet up with regulations that are onerous. It means working with the whole community and putting people in charge of this from the community to make sure we're competing in the smartest possible way and the most effective possible way. And let me say this, the analysis of film tax credits is they bring back more money to the state than they cost. So I see those as investments in California, not costs to California. I am, I may come across as very calm and low key, but I promise you, I'm actually very competitive. And I absolutely want this state and the people in this state and the tens of thousands of people who work in the film and entertainment business to win. And that means I'm going to be spending all my time trying to make sure that that happens. And I'm going to work with people from your community to make sure that that's what's happening.
Well, there are a lot of cities in California, but let's talk about how you're going to prioritize LA. Some people are talking about LA in some pretty negative terms right now. We're going to have on some candidates for mayor in a little bit. And there's a lot of doom and gloom here. I think a lot of it the result of the Palisades fire still. How
So
are
let me,
you?
I love LA. I love LA. LA is the heart of, look, if you look at numbers, LA is the heart of California. The idea of feeling bad about LA is not okay. I'm going to be all in on the rejuvenation and the vibrancy of Los Angeles, California, period. And anyone who doesn't do that shouldn't be governor of the state of California. Let me just say that. My son lives in Los Angeles. That doesn't, I mean, I love him. I want him to live in a great place. But this is probably the most critical thing that the governor of California needs to do. So that's why I'm going to stand up so much for the film industry. That's why I'm going to try and make the downtown vibrant. I really care about the fact that Los Angeles, California, and Southern California grow, are fun, have a sense of success again, and feel like, look, I am absolutely, FEMA has not paid people. This is the record amount of time for people not to get paid. It's deliberate. It's absolutely deliberate. They're doing this intentionally to try and hurt Californians. I get that. I'm going to be standing up to this administration because they're trying to hurt us every day. And it's critical. I'll do it in terms of taking on ICE. I'll do it in terms of working for the film and entertainment industry. I'll do it in terms of making sure that we have a vibrant, safe city. That is critical for this state. It's critical. Look, we have to do that. And if you look at my policies, that's what I'm pushing for. I want this to be the greatest state in the history of the world. And if you think you can do that without the people in Los Angeles, then you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, as an Angelino, I appreciate that. With 30 seconds or less, what's the one thing voters still don't understand about Tom Steyer, and what's the takeaway you want people to leave when they go in to vote?
The one thing I want you to know is you can trust me. I am all in on this. The corporations are spending tens of millions of dollars, $50 million against me. The working people are lined up behind me. The one thing you can know is I am all in on this. I am not going to back down. I'm going to make this happen. And I have no other interest but in making California a great place for working people again.
Wow, that's some dramatic music.
Sorry.
They played me off the stage. Oh my God. Where's the hook?
That was the first time you used this timer. Tom, the fact that you stayed to 15 minutes, that was amazing. And your answers were great. I really appreciate it. Good luck in this last week and wish the best to you. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. And I definitely can't do it alone. So I would really appreciate your votes.
Yep,
Great.
thank you.
Next up,
Amy, just give me 1 sec here because I forgot to thank you and Michaela for doing this.
Oh,
thank you. This was done very, very quickly. It's amazing that you were able to set this thing up. So just a big thank you to you guys.
Well, thank you very much. Okay. Michael Tubbs. Michael is running for lieutenant governor. Michael, welcome to the Candidates Forum. Thank you for joining us. We're going to start out with a different question. We have 10 minutes for you, but truthfully, most people still don't know what a lieutenant governor does. So tell us in layman's terms, and as quick as possible, what is this job that you're running for?
So much for everyone gets the same question, but the lieutenant governor is the second highest elected official in California. The lieutenant governor sits on the UC, CSU, and community college boards, not just big educational institutions, but big landowners to build the housing we need to make California more affordable for students and workers. The lieutenant governor also sits on the State Lands Commission. So we think about rebuilding after the fires, when we think about protecting our coastline, the State Lands Commission is one of 3 people that determine that. And then the lieutenant governor is the acting governor when the governor is gone or if something happens to the governor.
Michael, you went through that one fast. Wow.
He said fast, right? Did I miss you?
Wow.
Michael, tell us in 60 seconds or less why you're the right guy for this job.
Yeah, well, California's at a crossroads, and California needs people with the courage and the track record of actually getting things done to solve these intractable issues. My entire career has been defined by the fact that I don't run away from problems. I run towards hard problems. After graduating Stanford with my master's and bachelor's degree, I couldn't win it anywhere. But I went back to Stockton, California, a community that I just declared bankruptcy, a community where my cousin was murdered, to do the hard work of proving that government could work. 4 years later, I was elected mayor the same day Donald Trump was elected, with 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats on my city council, and we got stuff done. We reduced homicides by 40%. We had the first basic income program in this country's history. We went from bankruptcy to the second most fiscally healthy city. We had a 20-year crime low in 2020, and none of that was easy. None of that was slogans. None of that was consultant speak. It was all the hard, gritty work of governance. And for California to be a golden state for all, to make progress on the issues we talk a lot about, you don't need politicians. You need leaders, and leaders with a track record of doing hard things, of getting into fights, of pushing the envelope, of doing things differently, all in service of making sure that the government works for everyone. And that's why I'm running for lieutenant governor, and that's why you all should support me.
So, Michael, you answered this sort of just with your answer there, but I think when I saw you at Jamie's birthday party, by the way, several months ago, we talked about the fact that I had worked for the Spanoses briefly, and they were in Stockton, California. And at that time, Stockton was not doing well at all. It was really known, I think, to some people around the country as the unemployment capital, basically, of California in the United States. So how did you turn it around? By the way, you mentioned not having consultants speak. I'm a consultant. I love consultant speak, just FYI. But how did you turn it around?
Yeah, well, definitely a team effort, but part of it was building a coalition. So I mentioned three Republicans and three Democrats on my city council, but to reduce the homicides, to bring in jobs, it took the business community in the chamber, more conservative folks. It took the grassroots activists. It took police activists in the police union to all come together and recognize that to get different results, we would have to do things differently. And part of doing things differently was understanding that we all weren't going to be happy. We all weren't going to get our way 100% of the times. We're going to move forward. So a big part of my job was holding that coalition, doing the policy changes, hiring the right staff in the city departments to execute on the strategy, and then to do hard things, to end golf course subsidies so we have more money to invest in infrastructure, to go to the voters for a tax increase, but then having accountability mechanisms baked in place so that folks knew where the money was going towards. And also being very aggressive about selling the city, about painting a different narrative of saying, no, Stockton, California is open for business. And because of that, we're able to reduce the unemployment rate from 17% when I started to 5% at 2020 when my term ended.
Michael, you did a lot of great things as mayor. I'm personally not sure totally exactly how they translate into your role as lieutenant governor as far as the actual things that you can get done. But I know UBI was something really important to you, and you've been a champion of that nationwide. How does that play into you as lieutenant governor? I know it's something you're still focused on working on with obviously with AI and job losses coming. Something like UBI has been talked about a lot more. So love for you to hear about that.
Yeah, well, I think actually the best example is when Governor Newsom was lieutenant governor, he was able to get marijuana legalization passed through the ballot initiative process. And I view the role of lieutenant governor being able to do the same thing as we think about whether it's universal basic income or universal basic capital. I'm personally in favor of figuring out how can we own our own data, and be able to use that to generate revenue for everyone. But all those things will have to go through the ballot initiative and the legislative process. But as lieutenant governor, because I have to go statewide and talk to 40 million people, just like the governor candidates do, it provides an opportunity to build those coalitions and to have supporters like you all to put things on the ballot if it won't go through the legislative process. But in addition, a lot of the things I did in Stockton also pertain to housing. We were the first city in the state to partner with the governor's office to build housing on state land, affordable housing and workforce housing. And that directly translates to the role of lieutenant governor in terms of building the housing at the UC CSU community college lands and on state land. So I definitely think their experiences are transferable for sure.
Michael, you were in Stockton, you moved down to Los Angeles. Now you're running for statewide office. How has running for statewide office informed your view of things since you moved to LA from Stockton, obviously a much bigger city?
Yeah, well, I think that the challenges are the same. The scale is just different. The same challenges we faced in Stockton. I call Stockton ground zero for many of the problems facing the state, whether it's Los Angeles or San Francisco or Oakland or Coachella or San Diego. All communities are dealing with the housing crisis and figuring out how to build housing. All communities are figuring out how to make sure young people exit college with a real career and opportunity. All communities are figuring out what do we do about the issue of homelessness and public safety? And how do we do more than just talk about what it means to be a good Democrat, but show that being a good Democrat means delivering good governance? So I think my experience from Stockton in LA actually gives me the statewide sort of view and perspective. Like I know what it's like to live in the Central Valley in communities I feel like state government doesn't care about them. I've lived in LA for the last 5 years, raising my children in LA. So know the pressures of people here. I went to school in the Bay Area. So know how folks are feeling there. And I think that statewide perspective is why we have so much support, why the SF Chronicle endorsed us, and why we're going to be successful on June 2nd.
Mike,
Yeah, sorry, do you want to go, Jamie?
no, you go, Michael.
I worked with somebody who called me fucko for an entire year, Jamie, so calling me Michael is just fine. Don't worry about that. Michael, in terms of though being in LA, statewide office, what do you see an LG doing that perhaps hasn't been done that's to the benefit of this city?
Yeah, well, there's no one in this LG race that lives in Los Angeles. There's no one in this LG race that sleeps in Los Angeles that has kids walking the LA streets. So you'll have someone in a statewide office from Los Angeles, which generally doesn't happen. Most of our statewide electeds actually come from the Bay Area. Number two, I've spent a lot of time, particularly on Eaton fire relief. I raised over $1 million with former Mayor Brown for folks affected by the Eaton fire. So you'll have someone in a statewide office that doesn't have to be educated about the challenges of rebuilding after the fires that affected this community, but has already been doing the work to make sure that survivors of the fires get the permits and the resources they need to rebuild their lives. And then lastly, because I'm here, I could continue to be educated, push, prodded, and in coalition with folks who want the state to do more to invest in the film industry in particular, being in Los Angeles. I think as lieutenant governor, there's a bunch of space to make sure, as Tom mentioned previously, that the film credits that we're doing are the floor and not the ceiling. But we build upon that and continue to find ways in an iterative fashion to make sure that the film industry and entertainment industry can remain home in LA. But I do think it takes someone being from LA and sleeping in LA that gives a little bit more urgency and a little more focus and attention to that issue.
Michael, as a follow-up to that, obviously you're ready. You have a couple candidates you're running against. It's a tight race. Are there other things that really separate you specifically from those other candidates that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I would say I'm the only one, not just in the lieutenant governor's race, but also in the governor's race, that had to lead a city during the entirety of Trump's first term. No one else can speak to leading a city during COVID-19 like I can. No one can speak to leading a city due to Black Lives Matter protest and holding tension between police reform and the police union I was and police department I was responsible for managing like I can. No one could talk about fighting against ICE and Jeff Sessions and making sure immigrant communities are safe from a practical governance perspective like I can. And I think that experience is important because in California, we talk a lot about fighting against Donald Trump. And yes, Donald Trump is bad, but we have to fight against Donald Trump and also fight for a California that actually works. And I have a track record again of delivering in very hard circumstances. No one in this race has been in a bankrupt city and had to figure out how to raise revenue, how to balance budgets. And no one else had to govern with three Republicans and three Democrats to get all that done. So I think my experiences in a very difficult place are great preparation in addition to the fact that many of the issues we're fighting for that matter for Californians aren't just things I worked on as mayor. They're not just things I studied while I was at Stanford, but there's things I lived first and experienced first. And I think the fact that it's lived experience and governing experience married together provides a powerful opportunity to continue to deliver on a government that works for everyone who lives in California.
Michael, in many states, do the governor and the lieutenant governor run together as a ticket?
Yeah. Yeah, but in California, it's separate. So just like Tom and Javier are making their case to 40 million people, that's why you see these bags under my eye. I've been up and down the state doing my best to make the case to 40 million people as well.
I think you're making a great case. So we just want to thank you for doing this with us today, Michael. Appreciate you, and all the stuff you did in Stockton is pretty incredible. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Michael. And you beat the playoff music, which is coming right now.
Take that, Tom.
Okay, great. All right, Michael, thanks a lot. Talk to you soon. Okay, that was great. Well, these people are staying on time. This is unbelievable. All right, we're going to go right to Josh Fryday, who's going to be joining us, who is also running for lieutenant governor. So, Josh, are you here?
Yes. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone.
Josh, great. Nice to meet you. All right. So, thank you very much for joining. Really appreciate it. First, quickly, lieutenant governor is a role that is still a little confusing to people. Can you tell us as quickly as possible what lieutenant governor does?
Well, the lieutenant governor has formal powers, including being the only person sitting on all three boards of higher education. The lieutenant governor has also is the only person who sits on the Ocean Protection Council, the State Lands Commission, and the Coastal Commission. So, a really important environmental role. And the lieutenant governor, I think, is a unique role as the second most powerful position in the state to really bring people together, to actually solve problems, and to lead and take on hard fights, which is what I plan to do. So there's the informal powers or the formal powers of the boards that you sit on, and then there's the informal powers where you get to champion certain issues, which is where I plan on building off of the work I've led for the last 7 years in the governor's cabinet, building a service corps and job pathways for young people that's now bigger than the entire Peace Corps here in California, and hoping to scale that to create universal service here in California, and also hoping to help solve the housing crisis, which is the worst in the country, and use it to do that by focusing on building with real urgency on university and school lands, which we have tens of thousands of acres around the state where we could be building now. So those are the kinds of things that you could focus on as lieutenant governor.
I have a bunch of questions. Jamie, I have a bunch of questions. Can I ask a couple of questions?
Go for it.
So first, I want to ask why, like the one thing that you would want to do, Josh, and by the way, it's good to see you again.
You too.
Josh and I met at Nate Nails, where all good people meet. Josh, you also started like the Climate Corps something in California. Tell us about that, because turned out to be a big success. And I think that's not the only corps you started or ran, right?
That's right. Yeah. So when I came back from the Navy, I'm a military veteran. When I came back from the Navy, I started to look at how polarized our society had become and disconnected, and a whole generation of young people who are just desperately looking for meaning and purpose. And so when I became mayor of my hometown, I created this program where if you graduated from one of our high schools, got into our local college and committed to 2 summers of service, then we gave you a full ride. So we called it a local GI Bill. You serve your community, we help you go to college. Well, it was so successful, it caught the eye of the then Lieutenant Governor, Gavin Newsom, who was running for governor, and asked me what it would look like to scale that. So since then, he created this cabinet position for service and community engagement, asked me to come there, and we expanded that program that I piloted in my hometown to now something called College Corps, which we have on 8 campuses throughout LA. And we have thousands of young people getting debt-free pathways if they serve their community while they're in school. We also created the first climate corps in the country that was just referenced. That's now spread to 12 other states, became the model for the American Climate Corps created by Joe Biden. And I'm really running for this position of lieutenant governor because of that role you play in higher education. To answer your specific questions of one thing I'd want to do is create universal service. Listen, we're at a time right now where we are so polarized, so divided, so disconnected, and with AI coming, we have to think about how do we engage people differently, and how do we actually empower people to solve problems in their own communities. So I want to create universal service. I've created the model for it by creating this service corps bigger than the Peace Corps now in California, and I think California has a real chance to scale that and become something really unique that hopefully becomes a model for the rest of the country.
Good. Josh, give us the one reason people should vote for you.
Because we need to elect Democrats with guts. In my entire career, I've run towards the fight. I ran towards the fight after 9/11 by joining the military, taking part and being part of the war on terror. I ran towards the fight in climate change when I came home and ran Next Gen Climate. We fought the Keystone Pipeline when people told us we couldn't win, and we won. I fought polarization and division by creating the service corps that we just talked about. And Californians need someone who's going to fight not just to protect us right now against the Trump administration, but to also deliver and making California more affordable. It's what I've done my entire life, and it's what I plan to do as your lieutenant governor.
Josh, why lieutenant governor? What was the reason? What was the impetus to run, and why was that the right job for you?
Yeah, it's what we've been talking about. We're in this incredibly unique moment, Jamie, where we need leaders who can both fight like hell and protect us, which is, again, what I've done my entire career, and who can actually deliver and make California more affordable for families like mine. I'm not a politician. I was a military veteran. I now serve with the state. My wife is a 2nd grade public school teacher, and I just see how families are getting crushed throughout our state. And so we need leaders who can both fight and deliver. It's a unique experience and qualities that I have. And this is a position where I can deliver on scaling the service programs that I've built because of the role you play in higher education, and really building service into our education system to try to engage a whole new generation. Right now, there's over 500,000 disconnected youth in California. So these are young people between the ages of 16 and 24 who are not in college, and they're not working. They're totally untethered. So we have and we all know what path they're on in that case, right? And so we have this challenge where we have to think about how do we engage people differently and try to solve some of the biggest problems that we have. And I think service is a really incredibly powerful way to do it. It's been an important part of my life, and now I want to scale it. And lieutenant governor is a unique position to be able to do that.
Josh, first, our friend Heidi points out in the chat that Gavin Newsom endorsed you, and we should mention that, of course. So that is good.
Yeah. I'm very proud to have the governor's endorsement, Senator Boxer's, Pete Buttigieg, who I served in the Navy with, Betty Yee, and many others. So thank you for mentioning that, Heidi.
We have a question in the chat that I'm going to ask you, and it is a complicated one. If you're elected as lieutenant governor, how will you help and stand by the next mayor to revive Los Angeles to resolve homelessness, safety, and businesses flourishing, and really make it ready for LA 28? Josh, easy one. Softball, Josh.
Yeah, well, I do think this is a unique role that lieutenant governor could have, which is thinking about how do you really partner with people to help, because this is the homelessness is an all hands on deck moment. I got asked by a reporter once, who's at fault for where we are with homelessness? And the honest answer, we all are. We're all accountable for this. And so we have to, this is an all hands on deck moment where we all have to take responsibility for this. So what does that mean? I think it's why there's a reason why most mayors that have my programs in their city across the state of California, liberal cities, conservative cities, call my service program the most important homelessness and crime prevention program they have, because we're investing in young people on the front end and we're not paying for it on the back end. So one is by working with the mayor to scale the youth service corps that we currently have in the city of LA and our college corps programs and our other service programs so that we're doing the prevention on the front end. But then also, and I say this all the time because I believe this, we can no longer be the party of good intentions. That's what we've become, when the only thing that should matter to us are outcomes. And if we're not reducing homelessness, then we got to do something different. And we have to change the way we're approaching things. And we have to have the courage and the guts to be able to do that. So what do I mean by that? The care court's a perfect example. Care court is the right policy, I believe. We need it in place. The challenge is how it's
what it is, Josh. Explain what the care court is so people know.
Yeah, the care court is basically the ability to take folks who aren't in a mental position to take care of themselves and have the courts take over essentially a conservatorship for them. So the ability to actually have the courts step in and say and mandate that people need to go get help, or they need to go get shelter, or they need to be placed somewhere off the streets. Whereas before, a family had no recourse outside of calling the police, which wasn't working, to actually try to take over control. We needed that. The problem has been execution, where we haven't been able to actually focus on the people who most desperately need it, who don't have families that can step in. And so to me, and that's a place where I've talked to mayors about how do we create strike teams to actually go in, identify the homelessness who are most at need, who have the most intense mental health issues, and actually get them into care court right now where they're not being served. So it's an example where we've set something up with the right intention, but we haven't executed it to where we need to go. So it's working on the prevention side with scaling the service and youth jobs programs, and then it's making sure that we're actually executing on the policies we have in place to help us solve these issues. And then the third and most important is we just have to build housing at the speed of need, which is extremely urgent right now. And we got to get out of our own way. LA is the perfect example where I've talked to developers, many who said, I just won't do business in LA anymore because the permitting process and the time takes too much. So we have to change that, get out of our own way, and build the housing that we need to deal with this housing crisis.
Josh, you got 40 seconds left. A lot of Angelinos, a lot of Hollywood people on here. What can you do, and this is from Brad Goldberg as a question, will you commit to support large state tax incentives to bring California back production so we can be competitive when it comes to the rest of the United States and Canada?
Yeah, it's crucial. Listen, I worked with Colleen Bell, who is the head of the Film Commission, to push this through, and hugely supportive of this last film commission, but it just scratches the surface. The lieutenant governor was put in charge of the Economic Development Commission for California in 1971 by the legislature. And many of you might not be that familiar with the work of the Economic Development Commission because they haven't met in 15 years. So Jamie and Brad, the first thing I'll do is relaunch and reimagine the Economic Development Commission to make sure we're focused on protecting jobs and the entertainment industry in LA.
Josh, will you commit to using that music every time you finish it?
Every single time.
Say that one more time. So you will commit to bringing production back here.
It's part of it's not just commit, but we actually have to have a plan. So it's why I want to relaunch and reimagine what the Economic Development Commission could be with our iconic economies, like the film and entertainment industry, which is so central to our identity as Californians, making it central to how we rethink where we go with our economy moving forward.
Great. Thank you so much. And good luck to you the rest of the week, and good luck with your election.
Thank you all. Appreciate you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Okay, rolling right along. Now we have Ben Allen, who is running for insurance commissioner. Ben, are you with us?
You want me to pretend to be Ben Allen?
Sure. Matt, tell us what insurance commissioner does, Matt.
My insurance is too high.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
see. Ben, do we have you? Okay, looks like we got you. I know you're in the middle of a busy day, so thank you. Thanks for making time. All right, Ben, so welcome. Thanks for joining. First question, what does an insurance commissioner do?
So this is a position that oversees largely the home and auto insurance system. It also oversees a title, workman's comp, pet insurance, certain long-term care. It's got a very tiny bit of work to do on the health insurance side, though that's largely under the governor. But it both deals with enforcement, following up on complaints, both on the pro-consumer side and also on fraud. And then, of course, most importantly, it oversees the rate review process associated with the insurance companies, bringing their rates forward for approval. And of course, you're supposed to interrogate the applications, supposed to drive a proper balance between the solvency and the success of the market, while also making sure that consumers are properly protected. It's arguably also the most important and most substantive consumer advocacy, consumer protection agency in the country.
Ben, let me just jump right in with just giving us the one thing that you'd want to do, the biggest thing you'd want to do as insurance commissioner.
Yeah, I want to see I guess what I would say is my focus is going to be on consumer protection, while we also shift toward a system that's going to reduce risk. In the end of the day, the system's only going to get shored up. We're going to be able to move people off of the FAIR plan and into the regular market if and only if we're really able to reduce risk in a way that will also lead to low reductions in costs on the insurance side. But it's going to take an insurance commissioner who's willing to push this stuff hard, who knows the mechanisms of government, but who's also aggressively pro-consumer and who's got a really strong track record of standing up for consumers. I represent big portions of the fire zone. I got to see all of the madness of that process up close. Got to see how the department fell through a lot, how the industry fell through a lot. And I've now got a whole set of bills that I'm working on to penalize unnecessary delays, to increase the payouts in the wake of total loss, to give people more time before they're non-renewed, to make sure there's more enforcement powers, to have a stronger system in place for the review of smoke damage claims that's really science-based and not nickel and dimed by the industry. So for me, it's about having a really strong pro-consumer advocate in the job, but who also understands the mechanisms of government, understands the mechanisms of the legislature, and who's also really committed to striking a very fine but crucial balance in allowing for a successful insurance system that centers consumers at the heart of it.
Ben, obviously a lot of Angelinos on here, a lot of people affected by the fires. What's really going on? I mean, especially when it comes to insurance, and what do you plan to do kind of day one to help those people?
Yeah. So first of all, obviously, if I were to get elected, I'd be the very first person who actually had a major disaster in his or her district elected to this position. And it was really, I don't think I'd be running for this position if it weren't for the experience of representing the Palisades. I got to see all the dysfunction of the system up close. So I would, first of all, I'd want to dramatically beef up the support structure. One of the frustrating things through the course of the fire was that when people would call the Department of Insurance, they wouldn't get calls back. There's only 34 people handling these calls statewide. That's less than 1 per 1 million Californians. And while I was really proud of the fact that my office was able to step in and help people over and over and over again, and we got hundreds and hundreds of people the payouts that they deserved, it was frustrating. I was proud of that, but I was also thinking, why do you need to call your state senator just to get help? To get paid out for something you've been paying into for a long, long time. And so, I want to have a very strong, responsive, customer-friendly kind of operation in place to help fire survivors, and that's something that's near and dear to my heart.
Ben, I don't know enough about, but I appreciate your thoughtfulness and the fact that you seem very well prepared for this. But I just, for many of us, you saw before that people were involved in the California FAIR Plan, right?
Yeah.
Is that under your purview?
Yes, it would be. The FAIR Plan, as you may know, is a totally oversubscribed, undercapitalized, understaffed system. It was never, ever, ever created for this level of operationality. It was started actually as a civil rights initiative post Watts 1965 because the insurance industry was pulling out en masse from inner city California, and a lot of black homeowners were not able to get keep their mortgages because they weren't able to get insurance. Over time, it's now become entirely focused on very high fire risk zones, and it's become very easy for the insurance industry to shove people off onto the FAIR Plan and put more of the risk over there while focusing on the lower risk areas. So it's a screwed up system. There's a whole set of you asked about what I would do from the beginning. One of the many things I would want to do is there's some uncompetitive behavior that's currently allowed in the state of California that's not allowed in other places, which allow the agents to get compensated by only keeping people either in a particular company with a certain set of products or onto the FAIR Plan, as opposed to really working with their customers to explore all the options that are available to them. So we're already allowing and greenlighting certain uncompetitive behavior that's bolstering a reliance on the FAIR Plan, and I'd want to change that immediately. I also think, of course, we've got to do more to lower we've got to hold new construction to the very highest fire safety standards, because anyone who's building new construction in the very high fire risk zone that is not being built to the highest fire standards is basically freeloading off of the rest of us by putting those properties out there onto the market, making money, and then all that ends up getting onto the FAIR Plan, which we then have to bail out, and it's basically a subsidy that they're asking from the public for. So that's another problem. I'm one of the many things I'm working on right now is a financing system, a state-backed low-interest loan program that would provide people with resources for hardening so that they can do the work they need to do to make their homes retrofit and less susceptible to fire risk. But at the same time, we need someone in the insurance commissioner's office who's going to ensure that the industry rewards that kind of hardening behavior, that risk reduction behavior with real, affordable, available insurance on the back end.
Ben, just a couple less than that. That's a great answer. Thank you. From Donna Rosenstein, long-term care insurance is critical, but most carriers have pulled out of California, and many worry that those already with policies will be denied in the future anyway. How do you think about the long-term care insurance problem in California?
And
it's a massive issue. I've actually met with them. One of the many things I'd want to modernize at the department is just more openness to open up the market and to allow for some of these products to make their way in. I think the department's been so bureaucratic and slow and just unwilling to be open to tried and true products that are actually working well in other states. And I think you're seeing that in a massive way with long-term care. So I've actually done a bit of a deep dive into that issue. And from my perspective, it's about making sure that the department is allowing for more of these long-term care products into our state that have a strong tried and true track record in other states.
I do worry, Ben, that the insurance companies really don't want to insure people in California, but that's not even my last question. My last question is what the takeaway is that you want to give to people as they go into the voting booth. What do you want them to be thinking about Ben Allen?
Yeah, so I've got a long track record in the legislature fighting for consumers, for environmental protections. I know a lot of folks on here are involved with Hollywood. I was the lead Senate author on the TV and film tax credit expansion and extension. I'm on the film commission. We know we have massive headwinds there, but it's something I've spent a lot of time working on. So I've been someone who spent my entire time in the legislature just trying to make the system work better for people. And it's not always been easy, but it's why I have the support of really respected organizations like the Consumer Federation. They looked at all the candidates and they said, this is the guy who's actually got the chops, who's got the long track record of standing up for consumers, who also knows how to get things done in Sacramento. It's not just a bunch of promises. It's real work that's happening right now. I'm supported by Adam Schiff, by Alex Padilla, by California Environmental Voters and Sierra Club and Jane Fonda because of my commitment on climate issues. I'm supported by Dave Jones, who's been probably the most important pro-consumer person in the position in the past. But also the California professional firefighters, because of all the work we've done together on fire risk prevention. I was the lead author of Proposition 4, which is the bond that we just passed last go around that's finally putting serious resources out there to help with wildfire resiliency and healthier forests. I shudder sometimes to think if we could only have gotten that money out earlier, maybe that would have made a difference. But also building out our water infrastructure and our firefighting infrastructure. So I'm coming into this race as the guy who's actually got real experience on the ground, taking on really tough meaty issues. I just got endorsed by the San Jose Mercury News. I'll put the editorial in the chat for folks to take a look at. But I think it does a good job of mentioning how my record is distinguished from the others. We got some really smart, capable people in the race, but there's nobody who combines a kind of a strong set of progressive liberal values, but also real grounded work in getting difficult things into legislation.
Ben, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Good luck to you at the rest of your election, and wish you the best.
Thank you. Let me just get this. I'll put the Mercury.
Okay, you put it in the chat.
Thing in there. And, yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Next up, we have Jane Kim, who's also running for insurance commissioner. So, Jane, I want to welcome you to the Candidates Forum.
We got kicked onto the California Fair Plan once before for having 2 insurance claims, and it is a bare bones insurance plan. And so many people are using it because of the fire.
Jane, okay, not to cut you off, Matt, but we got more important people here than you, Matt, right now. Jane, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
No one is more important than me. Hi, Matt. Hi, Jamie.
Hi. So we got really short time. Thank you for joining us. Quickly, what is the job of insurance commissioner?
The insurance commissioner was an office created in 1988 by the voters of California to be the consumer watchdog between everyday Californians and this trillion-dollar industry. The insurance commissioner's office oversees a $3.3 trillion industry, which, by the way, counter to the narrative that we read about in the press, is doing quite well. In 2024, it made $170 billion. That's net, not just revenue. And they make their money by investing our premiums in the stock and bond market. They're more institutional investors and banks than they are insurers. This office licenses who gets to do business in the state of California, the most populous state in the country, where 1 out of every 8 Americans lives. It ensures that rates are neither inadequate or excessive. And 3, it ensures that the insurance industry is playing fairly and by the rules that we have created here in the state of California.
Jane, just in 60 seconds or less, what is the reason you think that people should vote for you? Give us one reason, 60 seconds or less.
Well, I'm the only candidate that PG&E, Sempra, and Con Edison is spending against right now. I'm your least favorite corporation's least favorite candidate because they know that I will hold them accountable and that I'll hold the insurance industry accountable. I'm the only candidate that is refusing money from the insurance industry, fossil fuel, utilities, and corporate PACs, because I believe that this office should be an independent watchdog for millions of Californians. I also believe that the current system is broken. The rates are too high. They're canceling our coverage. And even if we have insurance, they fight our claims every step of the way. Claims adjusters, and many of you have experienced this already in Los Angeles, estimate that anywhere from $1.7 to $3 billion are stolen from Californians every year on claims that they're contractually obligated to pay by delaying valid claims. I'm proposing 2 things. 1, I want to freeze your coverage and your rates when you file a claim. You shouldn't be penalized for using the business that you've been paying decades into. And 2nd, I want them to pay you interest every day they deny, delay, or underpay a valid claim. I'm also the only candidate that has been endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the nurses, United Domestic Workers, National Union of Healthcare Workers, Senator Bernie Sanders, but also Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis and Controller Malia Cohen. I've been endorsed by over 140 state and local elected officials from San Diego to Northern California. And I really believe in creating a very different type of infrastructure that is going to transform this industry to actually work for consumers.
So obviously a lot of Angelinos here, there's a lot of issues related to insurance here, especially related to the fires. Can you speak directly to what you would do as insurance commissioner to help us in Los Angeles?
Mm-hmm. So I mentioned this is a very profitable industry. In 2024, it made $170 billion net, not just revenue, like net profits. In April 15th, Travelers Insurance, one of the biggest insurance companies in the country, announced that they had $2.2 billion in excess capital just in the first quarter of 2026. And what did they do with that excess capital? They didn't invest in prevention and fireproofing and floodproofing. They didn't give discounts or refunds to their premium policyholders. They gave it all to their already wealthy shareholders. And what I'm proposing is for us to consider a different type of insurance system. One, I want us to look at what a public, nonprofit, single payer home disaster for all insurance program would look like in the state of California. I have been examining insurance frameworks in the 49 other states and in countries around the world. And when you look at countries like France and Spain and New Zealand and Japan, they all run some type of either public or public-private partnership between insurance that is nonprofit. Insurance prices risk, but they don't actually address it. And the way they reduce their risk is by canceling coverage on what they consider to be their riskiest or sickest homes. In a public system where you cannot cancel coverage, the only way to drive down risk the only way to actually reduce your risk is to actually address it. So in this single payer public program, they invest a portion of the premiums and the returns from it in actually fireproofing, floodproofing. Because even if you individually do the home hardening work, it doesn't actually take care of the entire neighborhood. And there's no guarantee that your neighbors will do it. And in a country where the average American has $8,000 in their savings account, they simply can't afford to do most of the important home hardening work that we need to do. I also want to expand our already existing low-cost nonprofit auto insurance program as well. I think that there's actually a lot of fun and creative ideas that we can look at that can make this a better product for consumers and actually protect people in the time that they need it.
Jane, let me ask you this question. It comes from Noah Greenberg in the chat. Okay, you ready for this? This is a long question, Jane. While we want lower insurance prices, insurance rates that accurately reflect risk play an important role as a market signal, discouraging building in high-risk areas. How do you balance these two imperatives? Related, Jane, insurance companies appear to be making decisions on statewide or at least zone-based basis. Is it possible, particularly with AI, to assess risk on a structure-by-structure basis?
Okay, so let me address the first question. They're both pretty big questions. So there's a lot of aspects to reducing risk and to addressing what I consider the systematic failure of the current insurance industry. So one is insurance industry itself and like how it plays by the rules and making sure that it plays fairly. And that's actually providing the business that we've all been paying for. Two is addressing the risk portion. So how do we reduce our overall risk from climate catastrophe, which is driving these insane wildfires and hurricanes? So one is overall climate movement. We have to reduce our dependence on fossil fuel long term. We cannot be using at the same rate that we are today, 5-10 years from now, because that is part of what is driving risk. And so much of what we're talking about here today is how can we as taxpayers and homeowners actually pay for something that is actually caused by a for-profit trillion-dollar business, which is fossil fuel. So one, we have to address that and we have to make polluters pay. Two, we do have to look at zoning and also reducing the cost of repair and rebuilding. And this is something that is particularly an issue in the United States in the way that it isn't in many other countries. And so that is a big portion of it. And one of the things that we are considering when we think about a single payer nonprofit system is that we would cover current homeowners, many of whom moved into their zip codes decades before it became fire zones, right? And if you think about it, wildfire zones actually have grown by 116% since 2011. So I don't want to blame folks that moved into areas that were considered safe 10 years ago, but we would restrict coverage moving forward. So we wouldn't want to incentivize developers to continue to build in these distressed areas. I think the biggest issue, though, is the fact that you may live in a safe zone today, but you may not in 5 or 10 years, because that's the expansion that we're seeing across the state of California. So we have to also look at other ways to make sure that we are covering people's most valuable assets.
Jane, thank you so much. Thanks for your time. Good luck on your election, and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Matthew.
Next up, we have Esther Kim Barrett. Esther is someone who most of you can't vote for, but she is in one of the most important races in the entire country. And I thought it was critical to bring her on so you could learn a little bit about her fight. So Esther, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And please tell everybody just quickly about your race and what the Herculean effort you're trying to accomplish right now.
Thank you for having me. I am running as the front-running Democrat in the last Republican-held seat now in Southern California. It covers parts of South Orange County and half of South Riverside. It was combined because of Prop 50, and it took two sitting MAGA incumbents, Young Kim and Ken Calvert, and forced them into a single seat. And now they're running against each other. Now the seat became more red in the process, but because they're running against each other, the opportunity has opened up for a strong Democrat. Me, we are in a three-way tie right now. That's crazy because these two incumbents, Young Kim and Ken Calvert, have been in Congress for a combined 50 years. Okay, so I am up there. Number 3, I Googled how to run for Congress. I've known Jamie for 15, 20 years. This is not my day job usually. And I am just, as the Republicans call me, an unhinged wine mom.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Esther, I want to thank you for what you've committed to running for this. It is a critical and important feat, obviously, with Donald Trump in office. This is a Democratic candidates forum. So everybody on here is supporting Democratic candidates, I'd like to think. Matt, were you about to have a question?
Well, I would say I have a lot of questions, Esther. Hi. First, in 60 seconds or less, can you give us the one big reason you think somebody should vote for you?
I'm the only Dem that could flip this seat in the race. Honestly, do you need more than that?
No, that's good. That's 60 seconds or less. That was less.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, let me just follow up. Is the district now, is it R plus or D plus? What is it?
D plus, that'd be magic.
Yeah.
It's somewhere between R plus 6 and R plus 8.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And
but we are putting R plus 15s and R plus 21s across the country. So, and because this is the last seat left, I'm hoping I'll get all of y'all to join me on this amazing journey to flip this seat.
Yeah, and I think this is unusual just because you're only running against Republicans. So it's not a question of who to support in your race. But I do think it's critical that people get involved and try and help and support Esther in this last week. So Esther, what can people do in the next less than 1 week to actually make a real impact?
So actually, Michael Tubbs and I were getting together and knocking on doors together on Saturday in Corona in real life with my ice cream truck. That'll be there. Jane Kim and I, who is also a friend, is hosting a phone bank on Monday to call people into the district to talk about Jane and Esther. So just go to my website. There's so many opportunities to volunteer either over here in the district or online from your pajamas.
Yes.
So every effort counts, every phone call counts. I will tell you, I am up against 2 MAGA incumbents that get F grades with End Citizens United. They are being funded by the CEO of Palantir, the Koch brothers, the aerospace industries, crypto, you name it, it's their insurance. And so it's literally a people versus them kind of fight. I have had 65,000 donations come in across the country. So I know I'm not doing it alone, but it's going to take a major effort.
Esther, I want to thank you. And I also want to thank you when Prop 50 passed. I know it was a big question if you even stay in the race. Most Democrats didn't. But I know that all that matters to you is trying to help flip the House, and electing you is going to be one of those ways that we do it. So I want to thank you. Good luck this week. I know it's going to be a nonstop 24/7 campaign. So we wish you the best. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We are now on to our first mayoral candidate, Adam Miller. Are you here, Adam?
I'm right here.
Great. Hi, Adam. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining. Very, very well. In 60 seconds or less, Adam, this is your last chance to make your case to voters. What's the single reason someone should vote for you?
Look, we all know the city's broken. So on June 2nd, the only question is who can fix it? And the reality is we're not going to fix this city with ideology. We're not going to fix this city with anger. We're only going to fix this city with results. And I'm the only one that's got a track record of results. I've been an executive for 35 years. I've created thousands of jobs. I've educated millions of people. I've kept thousands of Angelenos housed. I've responded to disasters in dozens of cities. I provided economic opportunity for thousands of young Angelenos, and that's the kind of results we need to turn this city around.
So Adam, I should mention to the folks here that I worked with Adam for 3 years, so I know firsthand about all the good work he's doing. And on homelessness, Adam, so folks know, you were going down to Lhasa, you were going to help modernize Lhasa. They didn't want to be modernized, right? And that prompted you to start Better Angels, your homelessness organization that's doing a great job. So maybe you could tell us the biggest issue, I think, for a lot of people in LA is this homelessness crisis. How do we solve it?
Well, number one, we got to allocate more dollars to prevention. Number two, we have to get rid of programs that aren't working, and we have to consolidate all the service provision because it's too expensive and ineffective. We have to clear all the encampments, so enforcing 4118 and putting people into specialized shelters, and then have the services at the shelters to stabilize people and keep them off the street. That's the only way we're going to solve the problem. And this isn't about posting signs that you have 3 weeks to clear out. This is about actually having a holistic solution to permanently solve the problem.
Adam, there are obviously a lot of people from LA here. The film business is one of the most important businesses in Los Angeles. There's unfortunately very little that the mayor can really do as a producer. The tax incentive is really the most important thing. People have complained Mayor Bass hasn't done enough. But she has instituted a film czar. She has cut permitting fees. She has cut time for permits. She's done those things that took longer than people wanted. But what will you do differently that was going to help turn the tide on production?
Look, we've lost, as you know, 40+% of our film business since 2019. And we have to be urgent about getting it back. Otherwise, Hollywood's never going to come back. People who have the talent are going to leave for where the jobs are. So we have to make it cheaper and easier to film here. And that means we got to work with the state for uncapped incentives, both below the line and above the line. We have to have a full-time film czar that comes from the industry, that actually understands the needs of the industry. We have to do centralization of the offices. We have to cut permitting times, eliminate fees for filming on city property. And we have to do more for small and medium businesses. So Film LA works fine for the big productions, but we have to do more for the small and medium productions to keep them here. That's the bread and butter of the city. And that's where a lot of the jobs come from.
Adam, on the LAPD issue, what is it for you? What are you imagining what the LAPD could look like? Like budgets are tight. What does a reimagined LAPD look like under Adam Miller?
So number one, we have to double the patrols. We have less than half the patrols of most other major cities. To do that, we can't afford to double the number of cops. We got to bring the number of officers up to at least 10,000, but we have to make patrols a priority. We have to increase car patrols and foot patrols in the more urbanized areas like downtown, K-Town, the Ramparts. We need a dedicated team working with homelessness. Right now, the homeless population is using up to 50% of our emergency services, about 40% of police time and 60% of the fire department's time is used up by homeless-related incidents. That impacts the other 99% of the population tremendously. And we have to modernize the police force. We operate the police force like it's 1980. We operate the fire department like it's 1960. And we have to modernize both of those groups to be more effective and make the city safer.
Jamie, you want me to ask that question that you just sent?
Yeah, you go.
So this one, I think it came from somebody, but Adam, there are many types of unhoused people in LA, from families to cars to chronic street homelessness, but among the most visible are those on Skid Row or wandering our streets. Drug addiction affects somewhere between 20 and 80% of that population. I know you know these statistics, Adam. I don't have to tell you. Depending on which study you trust, what is your plan to address that both effectively and ethically?
So Matt, I know this better than probably any other candidate because I've been working on it for the last 3 years nonstop. And the reality is it's a complex problem. There are a lot of different reasons people become unhoused. And then there's a lot of different reasons that people stay on the street. One of the biggest issues we have in LA is that about 60% of people initially become unhoused because of a financial shock. But if left on the street for 3, 6, 12 months, they develop drug addiction and mental illness or both, and they become high acuity cases that are hard to deal with. We have to allocate more resources to preventing people from becoming homeless and then getting them immediately off the street. Better Angels has kept 4,500 Angelenos housed who had already received eviction notices, who already were extremely vulnerable. So we know how to do this. I know how to solve this problem.
Adam, just also talk about the STEP fund.
Yeah, so the STEP fund is how we've kept 4,500 people housed who were already vulnerable, had already had a financial shock, and already received an eviction notice. And we did it for 98% less than it costs the city once a person's living on the street. So we got to have more prevention. It's way cheaper and way more effective. But we also have to allocate resources to people that were recently unhoused, not only the people that have been living on the street for 10 years, to clean up and make the problem smaller. And then the people that remain have to go to drug treatment programs, they have to go to mental health programs, and they need support. So we need the shelters to be specialized and provide support at the shelter.
We hear all the time that LA is broken and it's not working. But at the same time, you could debate it, but homelessness is down, wherever you use a number, whatever you want to use it, especially compared to nationwide numbers. Crime is down. Again, it's the percentage is questionable. And even just recently, someone mentioned to me there was a Film LA Q1 study where I think the number is that film production in Los Angeles, this shocked me, was up 45% in Q1, which is from Film LA, which again, take it for what you want, but that is the barometer we're using. So I guess, is LA as broken as people say, and how do you kind of, what's your counter to those arguments or those numbers?
Yeah, so Jamie, I ran a public company for 10 years and numbers are easily manipulated. I think people can see what's going on, but let's assume the numbers are correct. Let's assume those absolute numbers are correct. The reality is that if you take something like crime, there is less violent crime in terms of absolute numbers, but crime has spread throughout the city. So whereas in the past, there was a highly localized area that had a lot of crime, now there's crime everywhere. You talk to people in the Valley, there are break-ins incessantly in the Valley now. Home invasions, break-ins, robberies, and car theft. It's happening constantly, and people feel less safe. The homeless problem has gone from a localized area of the city, Skid Row, to now be pervasive everywhere. That affects small businesses. It's in front of schools, parks, churches. It's in front of commercial operations. It's very hard to do business now in this city, and that has a direct impact on opportunity and on the attractiveness of the city. And talk to anybody in the entertainment business, and they're going to tell you that filming is way down. I don't care what the stats say for the last quarter. People don't feel it, and the result is people are moving. I'm sure you've had friends that moved. I have friends that moved. I have kids who are away for college. I want them to move back home. We got to make this city more affordable, easier to live in, and we got to improve the quality of life for everybody.
Adam, what's the takeaway you want when people are going into the voting booth, right? Before you ran for mayor, not many people were familiar with you. Now they know who you are. What's the one takeaway that you want people to have when they go into the voting booth and they're looking to vote for mayor?
Do you want to express your anger, or do you want to actually fix the city? If you want to actually fix the city, I'm your best choice.
Very good.
Love that. Adam, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for running. It's not an easy task. It's probably, can only imagine it's even harder than you expected. So good luck to you in this last week. And thanks for joining.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay,
If
great.
you want to vote Miller, get the word out.
Okay, next up we have Jake Levine, who is running for Congress against Brad Sherman. Jake, are you here?
I'm here. Can you see me?
Got you. Thanks, Jake. Thank you very much. Okay, Jake, so in 60 seconds or less, what's the one reason people should vote for you?
Look, I decided to get into this race after losing my childhood home in the fires last year. I was serving at the time at the National Security Council, leading the Climate and Energy Directorate. I immediately got involved in recovery by launching a nonprofit called the Department of Angels, which is helping people get home. And what I saw firsthand was that we have a 30-year incumbent in the form of Brad Sherman, who is not capable of stewarding resources, of identifying needs, of organizing and delivering on a vision to get things done in government. I've served in the Obama White House. I've been a clean energy entrepreneur that helped take a company from infancy to IPO, to save people billions of dollars on their electric bills. I know how to run a process and get things done. And as we just heard from Adam Miller, we need people who know how to get things done. In the city and in Congress, we have major challenges, and that's my pitch.
Jake, I'm going to tell you my Brad Sherman story. Well, first of all, congratulations. You have the best hair of any of our candidates there.
It's a little unkept at the moment.
Last year, I spoke at the House Issues Conference in Virginia on messaging. I spoke for about 20 minutes, did a panel for about 45 minutes and Q&A, hour and a half. Afterward, I walk off the stage. I see Brad Sherman by the bar. Brad Sherman says to me, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I just gave that, I was just on stage for an hour and a half." He says, "I wish I saw it." He was sitting in the third row while I spoke the entire time. And somehow that did not register. I think Brad Sherman might be too old for this job. And the other important point here, Jake, is that if we didn't have you on today, which we would anyway, Nancy Stevens would murder us. And we don't want that to happen. So when you take on an incumbent like Brad Sherman, who almost killed his opponent 12 years ago, as you may recall,
Yeah.
years ago, that you're taking on somebody who raises a ton of money. And how do you defeat somebody like that who is sort of ruthless about his opposition?
You have to, well, first of all, he is ruthless. This is the first competitive campaign that he has had in a generation since Howard Berman. We have outraised Brad Sherman every single quarter. And by the way, we've done that without taking a dime of corporate PAC money. Brad's campaigns have been financed by big insurance companies denying claims to people like my mom in the Palisades, by private equity and banks buying up all the housing, by defense contractors that are perpetuating these forever wars. He has millions of dollars from these companies over 30 years. We have outraised him without taking any of that money. And we've done it because people are excited to see a new generation stepping up. Everybody feels it, not only in LA, but across this country. And that's what this election is about. It's about whether you want to vote for change, for someone who has a track record of getting things done, but who has new ideas and has energy. I'm very confident, Matt, that when we flip the House, we will flip the House, is what I'm confident in. But that when we do that, we need to send the best players onto the field. We need energy. We need people who are dynamic, who have good ideas, and who can convene their colleagues and build coalitions to get big things done. And I will say, just this weekend, as a sign of both the ruthlessness of Brad and also the success of our campaign, Brad decided to go negative on us. If he were not scared that he is in danger of losing his seat, he would not take that tactic. And it is baseless lies. It is the same old playbook that people are so sick of. We want young people who can come into office and get things done and provide a more positive, hopeful vision for the future.
Thanks, Jake. So you got 1 week till election. What's happening? What's the election looking like? How are you gonna bring this home?
Well, we've got sort of three primary channels that we're now communicating with people in mass. One is door knocking. We've knocked 65,000 doors on our way to 80,000. There is just like a movement of young people. And by the way, for anybody that wants to participate, you can go to my Mobilize site. You can just Google Mobilize Jake Levine. We have canvases coming up with John Lovett and with Jane Fonda. And they're really fun. We've had 20, 30, 40 people at a time knocking doors. We have a digital ad that is up out on socials and on digital media. People are seeing that. It's fun. It's about how much the world has changed, frankly, since Brad has been in office, and that as he continues to be there decade after decade, people see costs rising. They see an authoritarian government invading their cities, and they don't see a fighter in the shape of Brad Sherman. And then we've got a mail program going. We need 45,000 votes to make it into the general election. That's because there's one Republican in my race. That Republican, Larry Thompson, will automatically get 25% of the vote. So in order to advance to the top two, which is our path, we have to defeat him. And then once we make it into the general, we feel really good about the contrast on a head-to-head against Brad Sherman.
Jake, that would be an interesting head-to-head. I have many other negative Brad Sherman stories, by the way, that you could put in your ads. But the sort of, let's say you're in Congress in January, we're in the majority. What are the couple of committee assignments that you think would best serve the community?
Well, I spent my career working on climate and clean energy. I have a lot of ideas for how we can deploy the limitless capacity of clean energy to bring our electric bills down. That kind of work happens on the Energy and Commerce Committee, where I think we have an opportunity to pass bipartisan legislation to do that, to create more economic competitiveness around the country in this really important space. That's also a committee that deals with healthcare. That's where we passed, when I served in the Obama administration, we worked with Henry Waxman, who has endorsed my campaign, to pass the Affordable Care Act out of his committee when he was chairman of Energy and Commerce. And we have a ton of work that we need to do on healthcare, not only expanding Medicare so that it includes long-term care for seniors and vision and dental as well, but also bringing the fight to Congress for Medicare for all. So that's a committee I'm super interested in. And then I'm really interested in oversight. We have had an administration that has run roughshod over our Constitution, over our laws. We need to start providing accountability now. We can't wait to have a Democratic president to do that. And we need an oversight committee and a judiciary committee to begin referring prosecutions to the Department of Justice, start building a record, put companies in the private sector that have been complicit in this, whether it's a World Liberty Financial in the crypto space, or a big energy company that's acquiesced to the ridiculous contract violations of tearing down wind farms and investing in new oil and gas in Louisiana. We need to notify all of them. You need to start retaining your records, and that work will happen on oversight. There are a lot of committees that I'd love to, be honored to be a part of, but those two keep coming up top of mind.
Jake, Robert Garcia here in Southern California would be the head of oversight.
Yeah.
Circumstance, and Robert Garcia, Jamie Raskin at Judiciary, they're going to be very aggressive next year. And I think it's going to be a lot different than what people had seen from Democrats previously. So it'd be very interesting to have you on that committee, which would be doing some very aggressive work. Taking away age for a second, what's the area where you see that you differentiate yourself from Congressman Sherman? And by the way, when I talk about Congressman Sherman, I think I'm talking about mob boss. Right? Like that's what he seems like to me. But what's the area where you differentiate yourself aside from age?
It's really about effectiveness. It's about having an attitude of whether we can get something done or whether we're not even going to try. He and I just had a spirited debate about whether to underground the power lines in our Palisades rebuild, which is so essential for fire resilience moving forward. And what Brad Sherman said was, if we underground the lines there, then we have to underground them in Sherman Oaks and Encino. Which is outrageous, because we do have to underground them in Sherman Oaks and Encino, where we have a massive fire risk off of the Sepulveda Basin. And we not only do we have the opportunity that we never wanted to get it right in the Palisades now, but we have regular maintenance on things like power lines in the valley that we need to pay attention to. He has been there 30 years and he's gotten 4 bills done, and 2 of them are to rename post offices. In my work in the private sector, I helped build a company. I launched the California Climate Action Corps during the pandemic with Newsom. We put 20,000 young people to work. I grew a climate finance practice at the Development Finance Corporation into the multi-billion dollars per year. I really like getting big things done for working people. And that is the major difference. There are some policy differences that come up here and there, but really it's about effectiveness.
Jake, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Good luck this last week. Everybody get out there, do what you can do to help Jake. And
Can I just also say that I think Jake would be great. Brad Sherman is remarkably ineffective for somebody who's been in Congress for so long. So I don't know if we're supposed to say this, but
I'll take it.
Thanks, guys. Okay, now we're moving on to Zach Sokoloff, who is running for city controller. Zach, welcome to the Candidates Forum. Thank you for joining us. How are you? Thanks. Okay, Zach, what's a city controller do?
The city controller is the fiscal watchdog for the city of LA, the chief auditor here in Los Angeles. And the principal responsibility is to determine whether your tax dollars are being spent as intended, whether they're delivering the policy outcomes that they're intended, and ultimately, and you've heard, I think, a recurring theme from a lot of the candidates, focusing on results, proposing solutions, and working collaboratively to deliver results for Angelenos. We have a budget deficit, Jamie, that fluctuates between hundreds of millions and $1 billion. We've got a homelessness crisis that is both, leaving human beings on the street and costing nearly $1 billion every year. We've spent over $3 billion in the last 4 years, and I think we have little to no progress to show for that. We've got streets and sidewalks and streetlights which are underfunded and take months or years to repair. And we have a city government that is not functioning well for the people of LA. And I think the controller has a huge role to play in ensuring that our finances are cared for and that these services are being delivered effectively and efficiently.
Zach, 60 seconds. Give us the one big thing that you want to do as city controller.
Look, I would say the homelessness crisis is the issue that we talk the most about. We take a largely different approach than the current sort of housing first approach. We think housing is critical, but it is only the first step, not the last step. I think that so many of the homeless individuals on the street suffer from some form of drug addiction or mental health crisis, and we need to fund treatment centers and we need to fund pathways to recovery so those individuals can live a healthy, self-directed life, Matt. I was at the Downtown Women's Center last week, and this is one of the shining lights of the homelessness infrastructure, but there are far too few of them, and there are a lot of organizations that don't perform, that continue to get funded, and a lot of organizations that do perform that have to jump through administrative hoops. And so a homelessness issue is top of mind for almost everybody that we talk to, and that's definitely one of the first places we would start if we're elected.
Zach, I feel like I have some story involving almost every candidate who's been coming on our Zoom today. You and I haven't met, but I used to live next door to Paul Krikorian. Paul Krikorian, your opponent, the current city controller, used to protest in Paul's driveway. And he used to call Paul's wife fat and his kids fat and try to start fistfights with people in the neighborhood. And that was just before he got elected. So when people tell me that they're supporting his opponent, I do not. I think he's a really bad guy. And I've noticed that other people in the city have a very hard time working with him. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's unfortunate, Matt, that we have a city controller who has taken accountability to mean antagonism. I just have a very different approach. I think that you need to hold our leaders accountable. You need to bring oversight into the city finances, but that does not mean that you have to belittle or blame others. I think that collaborating across the city is critical. And unfortunately, I think in today's world, Matt, character matters in politics. I have an opponent who's been accused by several very credible outlets of sexual harassment, creating a toxic workplace. He pressured his subordinates to live in his apartment building so he could earn a referral fee. I mean, the list kind of goes on. And so we try to bring both a fiscal accountability, but also a new way of doing things that focuses on results and solving problems for Angelenos.
Zach, just to be clear, we did invite Zach's opponent on to the Zoom, but he declined. Affordability is obviously a topic you keep talking about. You're coming from, a lot of your campaign was self-funded. I've heard a little bit of that pushback and sort of, the sense of like, are you in touch with the affordability in Los Angeles? And how do you kind of push back on that comment?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're fortunate to have hundreds of donors from across the city and across the country, Jamie, who are supporting us. They're voting with their feet for change. They don't like how business is being done in Los Angeles, and so, I mean, look, we're on the street every day talking to Angelinos from San Pedro to Sylmar, from Boyle Heights to Woodland Hills. You know, we go out and talk to the unhoused folks on our streets and ask them, how has the system failed you? We treat them like human beings as opposed to statistics, which I think is critical in today's culture. And so, in my view, in my work, I'm a former public school teacher. I taught middle and high school Algebra 1 through the Teach for America program. I have spent years working in local Democratic politics. I'm a delegate to the state Democratic Party. I'm the only Democrat in the race. My opponent is a registered member of the Green Party. And we also started a mentorship and job training program to connect historically underrepresented communities to below the line production jobs so that our entertainment industry looks more like the city that we live in. I'm a former tenant representative on a rent stabilization commission advocating for affordability here in Los Angeles. And so at every step of my career, Jamie, I have sought to uplift folks who have been dealt a bad hand, to give of myself to a life of public service. And that's what I'm going to continue to do if we're fortunate enough to be elected controller.
Zach, is the city controller in charge of these large payouts that the city makes?
So it definitely has a role to play in both highlighting and minimizing the liability payouts, Matt. I think that this is a direct result of just the lack of leadership at the city level, the inability to take preventative, proactive steps. I mean, I think we haven't fully paved the street this whole year in Los Angeles. My wife and I are animal lovers. We're a foster family. We fostered over 50 dogs together. You see the same problem in the animal shelters, Matt, that you see with homelessness, with our street services, with affordability and affordable housing. When you don't address the root cause of an issue and you allow it to fester, you create a bigger mess to clean up in the long run. And so the liability payouts, I think, are a direct result of the inability of the city to exhibit or exert financial leadership in a lot of critical service areas. And again, you talked a little bit about, the funding of our campaign, Jamie. I think candidly, it does make us more independent than anybody else out there. So we come in not beholden to anybody. We want to spread the truth. We want to fight for the people of LA. And we want to have hard conversations that we've been avoiding for far too long.
Zach, when we're talking about those payouts have a direct impact on our ability to not fund some of the city's priorities. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're diverting money from the general fund to payouts, that is a huge suck of resources, Matt. But unfortunately, it's across the board. I mean, I would say you look at some of these major housing and affordability programs that we have on the books, and there has been no audit to speak of. Prop HHH, which is the Project Home Key initiative, the controller is legally required to audit those programs every year. My opponent has conducted not a single audit. Measure ULA, it's been on the books now for over 2 years. We've collected over $1 billion. The people of LA have no idea where that money is going, if it's actually having the intended effect of making the city more affordable. And if there are trade-offs or unintended consequences, how can we quantify those? Because when you have less property tax revenue, you're diverting money away from schools. It's obviously an issue that's very personal to me as a former educator. And so I think bringing transparency is important, but it's really just the first step, Matt. We have to take that information and turn it into impact so people see a result in their lives that make it easier and more affordable to live here in Los Angeles.
Zach,
ULA, is that mansion tax, Zach?
ULA is the mansion tax. That's right, Matt. Yeah.
Zach, last question. I mean, there are so many massive issues in LA, homelessness and public safety, and the list goes on. And people, the budget is sort of spiraling, but it's at the same time people want change. You can't just throw money at a problem. But how do you, as city controller, plan to sort of help wrangle that up at the same time, allocate the money necessary to try things and to make change?
Look, I believe very deeply in the kind of FDR approach of bold, persistent experimentation, Jamie. I think you need to try something, evaluate honestly whether it's working. And if it's not, I don't think that there's any shame in pivoting and trying something new. And so I think a lot of what I talk about on the campaign trail is a different way of doing business in Los Angeles, one that is more collaborative, one that is more focused on problem solving, not scoring points on social media. We were raised in a house where it's not about the credit that you get, because it's a amazing what you can accomplish when you don't care who actually gets the credit. And so from my perspective as controller, I am completely content to operate in the background. I'm completely content to uplift other people in government to help them do their job better. Ultimately, the metric of success that I care about is, am I improving the lives of Angelenos through the work that we're doing? That's how I'll judge whether we've been successful. And I think that that's what the people of LA deserve in their controller.
Matt, thank you. Matt, sorry, did it again. Zach, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Good luck in this last week. It's really, it's a, running for office is not easy. So thank you for all the time and effort you put into it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. We are now going to go over to Mayor Bass. Mayor Bass, welcome to the Candidates Forum. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on, Jamie.
All right, great. Okay, so first question. In 60 seconds or less, this is one of your last chances to make your case to voters. What's the single reason someone should vote for you?
Absolutely. Well, let me just say, when I became mayor, LA was in tough shape. The city was unaffordable. There were massive encampments everywhere. You remember the smash and grab crimes that were happening, and homelessness basically everywhere. So in 3 years that I have been mayor, I am proud to say for the first time, 2 years in a row, we've had a decline in street homelessness, 18%, while it went up in the country, 18%. I have fast-tracked 42,000 units of housing. 6,000 of those 42 are actively under construction now. And I've also taken on our infrastructure, which has been broken for decades, because we are the only major city in the country that has not had a comprehensive infrastructure plan. And so homelessness is finally down. Crime is at a 60-year low. I have fought to increase the number of officers in Los Angeles because we have been at a historic low. So I feel like in my first term, I have laid a strong foundation for LA to become affordable again, so that families can feel safe and parents don't have to navigate tents going to school when kids are not able to walk on the sidewalk. So the city needs change. I have been leading on change and want an opportunity to continue to do that.
Mayor, hi. Mayor, Jamie referred to a big increase in film production this year, in the first quarter of this year. Jamie, you had a stat like 40% or something? Yeah.
Yes, 41. I think it's up 41% in the first quarter.
Okay. Homelessness down, crime down. What is the disconnect? Because some of these statistics are good, but I don't think that people feel great about what's going on in Los Angeles. What is the disconnect here? What are we doing? How can we communicate to people some of the victories we're having as we, and of course, as you know, better than any of us, we're heading to a series of big events here, right? This summer, the World Cup, we've got the 100th anniversary of the Oscars, Super Bowl, Olympics. How do we make people, or should they even feel good about what's going on in Los Angeles?
Yes, I think so, especially all that we have coming on our horizon. And I think that, listen, 2 days after the election is the US Open for golf for women. We're going to have clinics for girls all around the city to promote that. 4 days after that is done, we have the World Cup. And the World Cup is an opportunity for us to have community celebrations and fairs all throughout the city, which I believe is going to help uplift some of our neighborhoods, especially our neighborhoods that were hard hit by ICE. I was at a press conference this morning in Koreatown because the big Korea-Mexico match is going to be on the 18th, and it's going to be on Wilshire Boulevard, and a lot of the businesses can benefit from that. So we have a lot to look forward to. But I also think that it's always about communication. And my communication, what I have done, Matt, is that I haven't been a showboat. I've been a workhorse. And I've been getting the job done. And Jamie knows that the communication absolutely needs to be a lot stronger.
Mayor, I want to just push back a little bit, because obviously the stats are what the stats are, but as Matt said, people aren't feeling it, and at the same time, people aren't seeing it in certain cases. There's encampments I drive by that are no longer there, but at the same time, this is a major problem. You are the mayor, you are in charge. Obviously, it's, we have city council. It's a challenging process. You've talked about how slow it is, but at the same time, you're mayor. And people want faster change. They want bigger change. Some of it may be realistic, some of it not. But what do you say to your critics and the people you're running against? The buck does stop with you. And I think sometimes you've gone to deflect to that, the fact that the city council has to approve these things. But you're the boss. You're in charge.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it speaks also to the magnitude of the problem and a system that has been dysfunctional for more than 3 decades. So what I chose to do was to not come in and study. I chose to come in and act while diagnosing what's wrong with the system and changing it at the same time. And we need a completely new system. But let me just tell you, in terms of my opponents, my one opponent, the councilwoman has been in City Hall twice as long as I have, chairs the homelessness committee, touts a massive reduction in homelessness in her district, and she should, because that's a massive reduction that we did out of the mayor's office from Inside Safe, and that's part of the statistics that she can tout. In terms of my other opponent, I'm sorry, he's an entertainer, and I don't blow him off by any means, because he's clearly, tapped into a sentiment using and entertaining all of us with artificial intelligence.
Mayor, our friend Mara Friedman has a question here. How do you react to someone like Joe Rogan saying to his millions of followers, you burned the Palisades, which obviously you do not, but you burned the Palisades as he endorses Spencer Pratt. Spencer Pratt says that a lot too, right? You're responsible for burning the Palisades. How do you react to that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, first of all, I am not this is a bit in response to what Jamie said as well. I do not deflect the fact that I am ultimately responsible. However, I think to say that I burnt down the Palisades is irresponsible. And I also think that you have a population that has gone through a tragic loss, a profound loss. And when people are grieving, as I know very well, people can be quite angry around what they have gone through. And I just think that that's terrible to tap into it in that way.
Mayor, can we talk about ULA for a minute?
Sure.
There's a misconception someone had the other day. They said to me that you were responsible for the mansion tax, and I reminded them that you weren't in office when the old mansion tax was enacted. And from my understanding, you've actually tried countless times now to sort of to amend it, rewrite it. So first question is, do you support measure ULA and the mansion tax as currently written?
No, I think we have a lot of challenges with it, and there are reforms that need to happen. I would not throw it out. I will just tell you that we just finished distributing over $300 million in grants to get housing built in the city, and also tens of millions of dollars in grants and contracts to prevent people from being homeless in the first place. And so there are parts of ULA that I think has caused challenges. I am involved in the reform efforts, one on the state level and 2 locally.
Got it. Thank you.
Mayor, I'm thinking about the LAPD, and I know you've been fighting for more cops, by the way. You've been fighting with the city council. Do you have a sense you've been there now for 3.5 years or so? Do you have a sense of the next 4 years, and would you reimagine the LAPD? Would we have more cops, more people dealing with them? How do you imagine?
Sure. Well, let me just say that I have always taken a comprehensive approach to crime. And so I started the Office of Community Safety so that we could prevent crime in the first place and intervene when crime happens so that it doesn't magnify. And so there is a lot of projects and projects that I've worked on over the last 3 decades that we have now institutionalized in the city. They've been tried, tested, researched. And so I have that component going. We are a city of 3.8 million people, and we have a small police department for our size. We need both. It's both, and it is not either or. Now, when crime has happened, like the spike that happened in the San Fernando Valley, I aggressively respond to that. And we did over the last, month, 2 months? And all of the individuals in that organized crime unit were arrested. And we had a crime spike last year. But it does come down to people's perception And so I believe in expanding the police department, but I also believe in promoting the work in communities that prevents crime from happening in the first place.
Let's go back to homelessness for a minute because, although again, even the numbers being down, obviously it's still very visible. And the question about what the root of homelessness is and looking at unhoused people who are unhoused because they lost their job or people who have drug addictions. And drug addictions obviously are a critical part of homelessness and the unhoused population. What do you think? What's the way to attack that problem and to get the people off the street who are kind of causing the most challenges to the people and the ones that are really making it feel like we're a city where homelessness hasn't gone down in many ways?
Right. Well, and let me just say that it is nice to come up with simplistic rhetoric. We're going to just sweep everybody away or force people into treatment. The bottom line is we don't have any place to force them to go. And the laws don't support that. Now, the good news is help is on the way. Voters a year and a half ago passed a ballot initiative to build the mental health facilities that should have been built 5 decades ago. And those facilities are coming online now. The largest one is at St. Vincent's Hospital, 800-bed facility that has been empty for years and has been used for film location. Support film location, but I would rather have a hospital there at the hospital's location. And those beds are going to be coming online. It is substance abuse and mental health. So prior to now, we really have not had any place to take people. And we also didn't have the laws that support people being pushed into treatment like used to exist with drug court. I'm a big proponent of drug court. Drug court still exists, but the laws around it does not support drug court. So I do believe in involuntary hospitalization because there are many people who are profoundly mentally ill and they do not have the capacity to make a decision for themselves. And I think that it is inhumane for them to die or to hurt other people on the streets when we know that that will be the result.
Got it. You referenced filming, and that's obviously a critical thing. You and I have talked about it a lot. Your people you're running against have sort of their policies appear to me sort of to be exactly what you've enacted. Now the pushback, but the pushback, which I'll say, is that it did take a few years for some of those things to happen. But in some ways, it's better to get it right. And as you saw from these Film LA stats, it actually is working. So I guess, what can you say directly to the film community to them to understand you are prioritizing them and how you're going to make an even bigger impact going forward if there's a second term for Karen Bass?
Exactly right. Well, the first period we were focusing on the state tax credits and lobbying for that. And now we're looking at film production here in LA and what is needed to make it cheaper, to make it easier. And so we have established all of those things that, frankly, the entertainment industry and your supporters came together and helped provide a direct input to that. And now what we want to do is make sure that's working. And if it's not working, then we need to add to it. What I would love to see us do, but financially we can't afford to do that right now, which is a local tax credit. And so to me, this is our foundational industry. A lot of education needs to happen, which I've spent a lot of time doing, is for people to understand it's not just about A-list celebrities. And so the way I believe you address policy is you work with the people that are most immediately impacted. So looking to the industry to say, the concierge service we established, did that work? The reduction in cost to film, did that work? Was that enough? Expediting permits, has that been helpful? All of those things we need to evaluate now and together come together and take recommendations for what more the city needs to do. I will happily embrace that. I know it is a mix of local policy change and continued advocacy. I'd like for there to be a federal tax credit.
I agree. I want to thank you because you have been willing to listen, and it was challenging to find the film czar who was right, and finding somebody inside the system was critical but in addition, by hiring a consultant and someone to work with them who's from Hollywood is, I think, a major reason of why you're seeing the impact that you're seeing. I love the local tax credit. I know we need to get our financial house in order before we get that, but I think that is great. And to your point, that state tax credit is really the holy grail. I mean, that's the thing that's going to bring back production, and there's nothing you can do about that. But actually, I'll defer to Matt because he has a question that kind of relates to that.
Yeah. Jamie, is that Stephen Kang? Is that the local film czar?
Yeah, yes.
And I've met with him as well, Mayor, and he's doing a really good job. But going back to, I hope we have a little extra time here. Mayor, you were just in Washington a couple of weeks ago, saw Donald Trump. Hopefully he's only president for the first couple of years if you're for your next term. But you have to get money from this administration, right? And in Sacramento as well. How is the relationship in these two places, and is it helpful toward Los Angeles?
Well, I can just tell, I can't say enough about how much it has been helpful to me, the fact that I served in Sacramento. In my last term, I was Speaker of the House. By the way, I got the first tax credits done when I was Speaker in the middle of the Great Recession. But having served in Congress, it is just helpful beyond me explaining. But let me just say that in Donald Trump's administration, he has appointed a number of cabinet secretaries who were my former colleagues. Some of them wacky, but some of them I have good working relationships with. So he appointed Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator. We're not going to talk about his environmental policies, but we did the police reform legislation together. And I called him up right away when Trump assigned him to come over and be my overseer. And we've been programming it. And what I wanted the president to do, aside from giving me an $8 billion check, I also wanted him to tweet about the banking industry and the insurance industry, because I wanted him to put pressure on those industries. That's the greatest impediment to rebuilding in the Palisades right now, is insurance and banking and financing. There's a lot of people that have permits that have not moved forward because of that. And so it took us a couple of months. He did do both tweets, and it is helping. And then hopefully we will get our $8 billion. The reason we need that money, because otherwise it's going to come out of the general fund, is we need to rebuild the infrastructure, the part the city is responsible for, the electrical, basically repairing the streets that have been torn up because of all of the construction trucks. So I have used my federal ties as much as I am out protesting, and we're coming on the anniversary of what I call the invasion, June 6th, when we were invaded by the National Guard and the Marines. I can fight him tooth and nail, and I also know how to work with the administration. Spent years doing very bipartisan work, working with people with extremely opposite views as me, like Tom Massey, who just lost his seat. They're actually people that I know how to work with. And the bottom line is, this is not an ideological job. I don't care what your ideology is. That doesn't fix a pothole. And I have to be able to protest him, fight him, and work with him at the same time. And I'm very confident in doing that.
Mayor, you had a job in Congress when you ran for mayor originally. You didn't have to run for mayor. So I guess my question is, why did you choose to run for mayor when you did? And why do you want to be mayor again?
Yeah, well, let me just tell you, I want to be mayor again because we have laid a very strong foundation to make the city more affordable, to address homelessness, to continue bringing down crime, and to position our city so that we benefit tremendously from all of these events that are coming our way. But Jamie, for those people that don't know me, just real quick, I'm born and raised in LA, but I made a decision as a child that I wanted to spend my life fighting for justice, and everything I've done has been that. I worked in the medical field years before I ever thought about running for office. I worked in the NICU, in the premature nursery. I worked in the emergency room at County General Hospital. My patients were unhoused. I walked away from my full-time faculty job at USC Medical School and dealing in the emergency room to start an organization because we had 1,000 homicides that year. And I went to the epicenter of the Crips and the Bloods and the 1,000 homicides and started an organization 36 years ago that is still going strong. And I walked away. I mean, I took the gamble because I most certainly didn't know I was going to win. Left Congress. I loved being in Congress, by the way, because I got to do domestic and foreign policy. So it wasn't that I was tired of Congress. But I left because of what was happening on our streets. The homelessness issue, the affordability issue, the deterioration in our infrastructure. And I felt that my city needed me. And so I ran, and I'm glad I did. I miss parts of Congress, most notably my relationships. But I'm here doing what I've been doing my entire life. And for me, being mayor is a full circle because a lot of the issues that I worked on decades ago, I'm now in a position where I can implement and make a concrete difference. And I'm very proud that I was selected to serve as mayor and hope that I'm able to continue to do that.
Last question: as people go into the voter box next week, I know we've talked about your successes, but they still have questions. So, what's the one takeaway that you want them to have from this, and as they're thinking about who to vote for next week?
I want them to think about the fact that I know our city needs tremendous change. We have moved forward in several areas. We have much more to go. And now is not the time to just throw it all up in the air and start over. I'd be very concerned that my one opponent from city council will send us backwards in how homelessness is dealt with and public safety. And I don't want to see that happen. And then my other opponent, who I don't think is serious. I think he is famous and wants to continue being famous. And we know how that works. We know what it happens when we have a reality TV star. I don't think that we need another one. Jamie, if you don't mind, there was a question that came up in the chat. I sure would like to answer it.
Okay, sure. Last one.
It was a question about MTA. Why did I support MTA having its own police department? I love that question because that was something that I fought for and I'm proud of. Because MTA does not need traditional law enforcement. And I have spent decades working on police reform. We try to reform these 100-year-old institutions. MTA allows us to create a new type of system. And so I believe that the crimes, and I serve as on the MTA board, and next month I'll be taking over as chair again. The crimes on MTA are quality of life crimes. It's substance abuse, it's homelessness, it's mental illness, and it doesn't need a traditional police department. And we need actually, in my opinion, 50-50. Law enforcement, because we do need that, but we also need social workers to deal with the quality of life issues. Law enforcement and public safety on Metro has been totally dysfunctional. It's run by 3 different departments. So depending on where you are, when you get on a bus or on a train, it might be the Long Beach police, it might be the sheriffs, it might be LAPD. That was a crazy way to run things. So it's an opportunity to create a new vision on public safety on Metro. I just had to answer that question because that's been a very big issue to me, how to do policing differently, something that, again, I have worked on for more than 3 decades.
Mayor, when you say you've worked on it for more than 3 decades, just so folks know, you did this in Congress. The George Floyd Policing Act, you got bipartisan support, which hardly anybody could do for anything ever in Congress. One of the reasons that some of us supported you and believe in you is because of your ability to work across the aisle, as you said, to work with people who are just willing to get things done.
Thank you. I did it in Congress. When I was in Sacramento, I focused on anti-recidivism. And when I started Community Coalition in 1990, it was to do exactly that. How do you deal with crime and violence that doesn't result in what we fought in 1990, which was later to be called mass incarceration? How do you deal with crime and safety without just locking everybody up? Because you know what happens when that happens. It's Black and brown people who are extremely disproportionately locked up.
Mayor, thank you very much for joining us. Good luck in the rest of the election. And thank you for all your hard work.
Thanks for including me.
Okay, bye. Okay, we're almost finished here. Unfortunately, Nithya Raman, just her team just sent a text saying she had a personal emergency and could not join us. And she was very sad to not join us. So we are going on to Brian Goldsmith, who is running for state senate. Brian, I want to thank you very much for joining us. Welcome. And I'm going to start you off with the same question we start everybody else off. Well, actually, go back. Tell people what is the role of the state senate, and how does, as a state senator, how does one make an impact?
Well, Jamie and Matt, thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm honored to join this illustrious group. Next time we'll actually have to have lunch so that it lives up to its name. I was not going to run for office. Some of you on this call know me. Many of you may not. I was a journalist for a lot of my career, working at places like The Atlantic, CNN, CBS News, Yahoo. And then I left to do a startup in Silicon Valley, and I also helped candidates across the country and in California that I believed in. And I was going to spend my time on those two things, helping startup businesses and helping political causes. But two things started to change my mind. One was the way that California was weaponized against Kamala Harris in the 24 cycle. That, our party became the party of bad video from this state, particularly around public disorder, law enforcement, homelessness, unaffordability, et cetera. And then, as if to put an exclamation point on that, we had the fires in the district where I'm running and very close to where I grew up in the Palisades in Malibu that were an example of government dysfunction at all levels. And so I think the legislature and Sacramento, to answer your question, Jamie, are often overlooked in these conversations. So much focus is on the local city hall and on the circus in Washington, but on so many of the key issues that play an enormous role in our lives, from public schools to public safety to our public universities, environmental protection, healthcare. I go on and on. The state actually plays the leading or the critical role. And so I think who we send there really does matter.
Brian, first, you and I go back several hours.
Indeed.
Give us the priority for you coming into the state senate? I know your name from journalism, but I also think, by the way, it's great that people want to run for office. In a million years, I wouldn't do it. I just think it's such a crazy time. So I think I admire the fact that you're willing to do this. What is the big priority, the big impetus for you to want to be in office?
Well, I take great pride in the fact that in this campaign, I've repeated the same priorities to every group, whether they're business or labor or entertainment or environmental, whatever. Number one, we have to make it more affordable to live here, to be a family here, to be a business here, to build the infrastructure we need, because if you care a lot about the environment, we have to develop our capacity to build clean energy so that we're not behind Arizona and Texas in wind and solar, and we can do these things. Number two, we have to confront the quality of life challenges that many of us have, experienced every day and that were just discussed with the mayor, particularly homelessness and crime. I think we need a new strategy. Third, I think we need to spend less of our time on identity politics, us versus them, kind of clickbait, superficial issues, and a lot more time on the big challenges that we're going to confront in the future, like how do we deal with disruptive new technologies like artificial intelligence? How do we deal with increasingly dangerous climate-driven events? How do we fix our insurance system? And then finally, how do we build a politics and demonstrate that we can build a politics that confronts hate and division in our society? I mean, we're living in such a toxic time. And I do think we have to not just preach, but also practice a politics of common ground, bringing people together across difference, confronting the isms, racism, anti-Semitism, Asian hate, but also, trying to find areas where we can work together, even if we hold different views. And I think that would be a big focus as well.
Brian, pick one, the biggest thing.
The
one
biggest
thing out
thing,
of you
I'm going to
really
pick
did-
two. I'm going to be a politician and respond to your question and not directly answer it, but I'll pick two. One is we've got to make it easier for small businesses to survive here. So I would audit all of our rules, permits, fees, and taxes for restaurants, all kinds of other businesses that are really the heartbeat of our community, and figure out how to ease the load and lighten the burden. And number two, we've got to create a better structure for rebuilding the Palisades in Malibu, because that's obviously a big responsibility of whoever holds this job into the future.
Brian, just specifically, as state senator, and when it comes to, let's say, small businesses in Los Angeles, I mean, give me a tangible response, like what you can do as a state senator.
Well, I think sometimes people are too sophisticated by half on this stuff. They think, oh, well, you're one of 40 state senators. There are 80 members of the assembly. What can you get done? And there's a lot of reason to be skeptical, but I'll give you two examples from last year where a smart, strategic legislator made an enormous difference. One, as the mayor just discussed, was on the film and TV tax credit. That was made possible by the person whose seat I'm running for, Ben Allen, and Rick Saber, and some others who spent years building the coalition of entertainment unions, entertainment companies, and others to more than double the tax credit. Now, it's inadequate. It should be uncapped. It should cover above the line. We can go into all of that. But if that had failed, I cannot imagine where we would be right now in terms of production in this state. And number two was the legislation that is really a landmark bill to confront anti-Semitism, which has become a major problem for Jewish kids in K through 12. And everybody said this was impossible because the teachers and the faculty association opposed it. But again, a couple of smart, determined legislators painstakingly built the coalition with the other ethnic caucuses, the Black Caucus, AAPI Caucus, Latinos, and others who came in behind it and got that done. So I think it's possible. It just requires focus. So on small business, I want to first of all understand what the problem really is. Because it's not just local. Everybody points to local. A lot of our, taxes, fees, permitting, et cetera, are at least enabled at the state level, and I want to ease that burden as much as possible. So I want to understand the scale of the challenge, and then I want to work with both community groups, the Chamber of Commerce, other interests, and build the widest possible group in support of a series of reforms.
Brian, you mentioned anti-Semitism, the anti-Asian issue. The anti-Asian issue really exploded during COVID, right?
Absolutely.
What does a
Asian
state
hate, yeah.
Right, which I did not know enough about until it exploded during COVID. And then it was just, you saw people literally getting hit on the street because they were Asian, for example. What does a state senator do, you specifically, to stop that kind of thing? Because a lot of it is, you could say that we'll pass a law, but some of this is just, all this hatred, it's mentality. How do you stop that?
Well, it's also about systems and resources. So AB 715, for example, doesn't just hold the school responsible for protecting Jewish kids. It holds the district liable for failing to do so. And they pay a financial and legal penalty if they don't live up to, what they're supposed to do to keep their kids safe. With respect to Asian hate, we've got to make sure that law enforcement has the resources that it needs to do its job in this state. It is unacceptable to me that LAPD, for example, is at 8,600 officers and falling. We should be at least at 10,000. And if the city can't figure out a way to find the resources for that, I think the state needs to come up with a program to help fund this. The federal government funded local police during the Clinton and Obama administrations. And the thing is, if you're a progressive, you want to actually refund the police and not defund the police, because the thing that gets cut when the force gets this small is all the neighborhood safety programs, the community outreach, the getting to know the neighborhoods, and everything just gets thrown at emergency response, which in and of itself is suffering.
So let me ask you, Brian, because you mentioned so you're referring before to the cops on the beat legislation that was passed in the early 1990s that Joe Biden wrote when he was at the Judiciary Committee, right, and increased by 100,000 cops on the beat. So you're saying that the state, because the mayor talking about before, the city council is not keen on paying for more cops in Los Angeles. So you're saying that the state can get involved.
I'm
And
saying the state could help
yeah,
provide the financing. I am not for the mass incarceration elements of that legislation. I think that was a big mistake, and I've said it publicly throughout the campaign. But I am for strong community-based policing, and that requires resources. That requires a higher level of sworn officers than we have now. And I do think the state could play a constructive role. And I don't buy the argument, by the way, that you often hear from the sort of status quo crowd in Sacramento, that the state has no money. I actually looked this up. The state's budget during Jerry Brown's last year, just 7 years ago, was $208 billion. The budget this year under Governor Newsom is $349 billion. So somehow we have no money, but the budget has gone from $208 billion to $349 billion in 7 years without a commensurate increase in the quality or availability of our public services. I think we need more people up there asking hard questions like that.
Brian, thank you for joining us. Last thing, in 30 seconds or less, the election's next week. Why? What's the takeaway here? Why should someone vote for you versus your opponents?
Because if we want to change Sacramento, we need to change the people that we send there. We need people who are independent of any narrow special interest, who are going to fight for this whole district, for our entertainment industry, and for the other, the major businesses and job creators that provide a lot of the tax revenue to fund the critical public services we need.
Thank you so much. Good luck this week. Thank you for running and putting yourself out there. It's not an easy job. Okay, now we're going to go to Faizah Malik, who is running for city council.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you for joining. So hopefully everybody on this Zoom knows what city council does. So I'm not going to go in. I'm not going to make you describe a city council member, but I would like to know in 60 seconds or less why people should vote for you.
Sure. So I'm Faizah Malik. I'm running for LA City Council District 11. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids in elementary school. I am a renter in Venice. I was born and raised here in Southern California. I'm also the daughter of immigrants, and I've spent the last 15 years as a civil rights lawyer fighting for policies that make our economy fairer for everyday people, particularly focusing on our housing crisis. And in my career, I have seen wealth inequality become worse in our society. Everyone's talking about affordability now. I've spent my career fighting for affordable housing, fighting to keep people in their homes and really addressing those long-term solutions that we need. And that's why I'm running for this council district. This district is one of the most expensive areas of Los Angeles. And I think we have to be serious about investing in the long-term solutions to our housing crisis. I want to make sure our budget is investing in the long-term solutions Angelenos need. And I'm running against my council member because I do not believe that she is serious about fighting for those long-term solutions. I've only seen her oppose the things that I fought for in City Hall. And that's why I think we need a different kind of leadership in this council district, and one that's going to represent the fullness of this district.
Hi, it's Matt. Hi.
Hi.
We heard before, we were talking about the lack of police in the city of Los Angeles and the city council. There are a lot of budget issues coming up in the city now, and the difficulty in funding the police. The mayor had asked for a few hundred more. It was very difficult for her to get that. Where do you stand on the police issue in Los Angeles? Do you feel that we have enough, not enough, too much? What's your feeling about that?
I want to make sure that Angelenos are getting the safety that they want and deserve from our policing budget, from our public safety budget. That is important to me. Right now, we have 8,300 sworn officers, but only on a given day, 10 to 20% of them are on patrol. I think people want police officers to be doing their jobs, to be solving violent crimes. I think right now we have to look at what we're spending our police budget on to make sure we're getting the public safety programming and support that we need. And so to me, it's really just looking at what are we getting from our current sworn officers? There are 23 sworn officers, for example, in media relations right now. Is that the best use of our money? We're spending $200,000 on someone with a badge and a gun to sit in media relations. I want to make sure that we are investing in unarmed crisis response that is more effective for dealing with issues like homelessness. Our police officers have said again and again that that is not an issue that they are equipped to train, equipped to handle. And so I want to support those types of programming with social workers and case management. So then we free up our current police officer force to do what we want them to do and what they want to do.
Thank you for that. Section 41.18 has been obviously a hotly discussed topic during the mayoral race. I'm curious on where you stand on it, on the city ordinance, and if you could explain to people what it is.
Sure. 4118 is a city municipal ordinance that bans encampments around certain areas, and there are rules in the ordinance about where these no camping zones can be put up. Tracy has expanded them greatly under her tenure. What this policy has done and what it does not do is it does not house people. It does not provide services. It does not provide shelter. What we have seen under Tracy's tenure is actually a decrease in shelter beds, and we have closed shelter in this district. She is blocking the long-term housing solutions we need to actually move people from the streets into homes to end homelessness. She has opposed the renter protections that we need to keep people in their homes. And so I think what's really important is the conversation is around this no camping ordinance, but I really want people to understand, and what we've been telling voters at the door is that our affordability crisis is driving our homelessness crisis. So if we want to stop people from being on the streets, we got to stop people from becoming homeless in the first place. And a law like 4118 that regulates public space, which I think we do need regulations for our public spaces, doesn't actually address that affordability in our housing crisis. And so that's not the solution to our homelessness crisis. What's happening is we're moving homelessness around the city. And I think that we have to talk about the whole solutions to our homelessness crisis.
Which obviously is insanely complex. But if you were in city council, would you have been a no vote or a yes vote on 4118?
I don't think it's a solution that we should be pushing around the district. I think I want to make sure we're building shelter and housing right now and prevent people from falling into homelessness. I believe in like regulating our public spaces in a way that's thoughtful and makes sense, but it's a blanket tool like this is just not solving homelessness. And it's really important for people to understand that.
So you would have been a no vote?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Matt?
Looking at the Palisades, Tracy Park has been the sort of face of the issue, the recovery for many of the people there. Now we're talking about potentially switching representatives, midway, quarter way through this recovery process. Do you think that helps the people there? Do you think it disrupts? What's your view on that?
I think people in the Palisades that I've been talking to are really frustrated with City Hall. They're so frustrated with the lack of accountability. City Hall, state government, every single level of government. And what I see is what is lacking is there should be accountability we should be acting on our after action reports that we're saying, and we need leadership in City Hall right now that's going to do the coordination across different jurisdictions with the county, with the state, so we get the resources, and with the federal government, so we get the resources that we need to rebuild the Palisades. And then we act on the emergency planning that we need to do, the evacuation routes, the rebuilding we need to do, insurance issues. All of that requires a lot of coordination. I am not seeing that long-term vision coming out yet. I am not seeing that coordination from our current council member as well. The example I always point to is that we killed a good Ben Allen bill, SB 549, that would have created a rebuilding authority and done some of this work because someone like Spencer Pratt put in the bill into ChatGPT and incorrectly said that it was going to create affordable housing and riled everybody up. And it basically ended up, I think killing a really good bill that was a good idea that we should have been moving forward that came out of the Blue Ribbon Commission. And so I want to see more of that coordination and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. So just to wrap up here, the election is next week. Thank you again for running. It's such a testament to people's will and passion. They run for these offices. It's not easy. The job isn't easy if they get it. It's even harder, and to run for it can be pretty miserable. So thank you for that. People are voting in just exactly a week. What's the one takeaway you want people to have as they walk into the voter booth and they're making that final decision?
I think people are rightfully frustrated with city government right now, and I think the role of people running for office right now in the city of Los Angeles is to restore that trust. That is the job right now, I think what it's going to require is leaders that are competent and honest and transparent and care about accountability. And I'm really running because I have worked in local government and I've been an advocate outside of government. And I want LA city government to work for people. I want it to work for everyday people. I want to get to yes on the things that we need, on the investments we need in housing and our streets and our parks and our programming and recovery and climate resiliency. I want to get to yes to that. And I think we can do those things. And I don't believe we need to turn to fear-mongering politics and the way the temperature has really increased in our politics. I think that we really need to just return to restoring trust again. And I'm running to represent the fullness of the district, everyday people. I'm running to make sure the West Side stays a place where everybody can live, where everybody can have a future. And that's truly what I believe in. I'm a parent here and I'm a daughter of immigrants, and that's the LA I love, and that's the LA I'm fighting for.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
And good luck in this last week.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
All right, we did it. 2.5 hours. For those of you who were on the whole time, thank you. I think Matt and I are going to need to take a nap now or something else. I hope this was helpful. I'm holding my ballot close. I'm going to still be, doing some more research. I think for me, this cleared up some questions. I still have some additional questions that I want answered, and I'll do some more research. If you have any, reach out. If you have any great ideas or thoughts, send them. If you're on this, if you're listening to this, that means you care about Los Angeles. You love Los Angeles. You want it to be its best. You care about California. I know I do. I get excited and thankful every day that I live here, warts and all. I am so proud that we have these amazing events coming to showcase our city. I'm going to be doing some work with LA 28 that I'm really excited about, and I'm confident that we are going to be the best version of ourselves when those events come and those times. So thank you, Matt. Thank you for helping.
Jamie. Thanks, Michaela. Thank you both.
And a special shout out to Michaela Sullivan, who's on here, who worked really hard over this weekend to pull this together. And look forward to seeing you all again soon on a Lunch with Jamie podcast conversation or somewhere in the city. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.